A rabbit is almost too efficient to make sense. It can eat grass, leaves, garden scraps, and feed that would never become a steak. It can grow quickly. It can reproduce fast. It does not need a pasture the size of a field. It does not need the years a cow needs, or the space a sheep needs, or the giant industrial machine that turned chicken into America's favorite meat. And yet, walk into most American grocery stores and look for rabbit. You will probably find nothing. Chicken is everywhere. Beef is everywhere. Pork is everywhere. Turkey appears every November. Shrimp, salmon, crab, and even more unusual foods sit neatly behind glass. But rabbit? Almost invisible. That is strange, because rabbit meat has almost everything a modern food system says it wants. It is lean. It is high in protein. It can be raised in small spaces. It has been eaten by humans for a very long time. And in many countries, it is not shocking at all. So why don't Americans eat rabbit? The first answer is that Americans used to. During World War II, meat was rationed. Beef, pork, and other common meats became harder to get. Families were asked to stretch food, grow gardens, save scraps, and think differently about dinner. Rabbit fit that world perfectly. A backyard rabbit hutch did not need much land. Rabbits could reproduce quickly. They could turn feed into meat efficiently. They were small enough for families to raise at home. For people trying to put protein on the table during a shortage, rabbits made practical sense. Government and agricultural groups encouraged rabbit production. Backyard meat rabbits were not seen as strange survival food. They were treated as useful, patriotic, and sensible. For a while, rabbit looked like the future. Then the war ended, and rabbit slowly vanished from the American plate. That is the part that needs explaining, because the rabbit did not suddenly become inefficient. It did not stop growing quickly. It did not stop being edible. It did not lose its nutritional value. The animal stayed the same. The culture around it changed. One of the biggest changes was the rise of the pet rabbit. After the war, many American families had more money, more suburban space, and more interest in keeping animals for companionship. Dogs and cats dominated the home, but rabbits became common children's pets. They were soft, quiet, small, and easy to imagine in a backyard hutch. And once an animal becomes a child's pet, it becomes harder to call it dinner. This is not about logic. It is about categories. Humans mentally sort animals all the time. Some animals are food, some are friends, some are pests, some are wildlife, some are sacred, some are disgusting. These categories are not universal. They change from country to country, religion to religion, family to family, and generation to generation. A cow can be sacred in one culture and dinner in another. A dog can be family in one place and food in another. A horse can be a working animal, a companion, or a steak, depending on where you are. Rabbit landed in a strange place in the English-speaking world. It was useful enough to eat during hardship, but cute enough to love during comfort. And comfort won. Children did not grow up seeing rabbits as livestock. They grew up seeing rabbits in picture books, cartoons, Easter baskets, pet stores, and backyard cages with names like Snowball or Thumper. Peter Rabbit had already been charming children for decades. Bugs Bunny made the rabbit clever, funny, and impossible to kill. Thumper made it sweet and innocent. By the time children raised on those stories became adults, Rabbit was no longer just an animal. It was a character. And people have a hard time eating characters. This is part of what psychologists call the meat paradox. Many people love animals and also eat animals. To live with that contradiction, they often separate animals into groups: edible animals and protected animals. A chicken can be eaten because it belongs to the food category. A rabbit may feel wrong because it belongs to the pet category. The line is not based on intelligence. Pigs are highly intelligent. Cows have social bonds. Chickens have complex behaviors, but they stayed on the food side of the cultural line. Rabbits crossed over. Once that happens, efficiency stops being persuasive. You can explain feed conversion, water use, protein content, and land savings all day. If someone sees a rabbit as a pet, the argument may already be over. But emotion is only part of the story. There was also a factory problem. Chicken did not become America's dominant meat only because people liked the taste. Chicken won because it fit industrial production unusually well. Chickens grow fast. They can be raised in large groups. Their bodies are relatively uniform. Processing lines can be built around them. Breeding companies could select for rapid growth, large breast meat, feed efficiency, and predictable size. Fast food chains and grocery stores could sell chicken in standardized forms: breasts, thighs, wings, nuggets, strips, sandwiches, buckets. Chicken became a machine. Rabbit never did in the same way. Rabbits are efficient biologically, but they are not as easy to industrialize at American scale. Their carcasses are smaller and shaped differently. Processing can be more labor-intensive. Their bones are delicate. Their meat is lean, which can be good nutritionally but can make cooking less forgiving. They do not fit the same giant supply chains that chicken came to dominate, so rabbit got trapped. Too emotional for many consumers, too small scale for massive industry, too unfamiliar for supermarkets, too associated with the past to become the future. Meanwhile, chicken received advertising, infrastructure, breeding programs, fast food empires, and a permanent place in the American kitchen. By the time rabbit advocates tried to bring it back, chicken had already taken the shelf space, the recipes, the restaurants, and the imagination. In Britain, another event damaged rabbit's image even more: myxomatosis. In the 1950s, this viral disease spread through wild rabbit populations and caused terrible suffering, including swelling, blindness, and slow death. The outbreak was devastating. Within a few years, it killed an enormous share of the wild rabbit population. To some people, rabbits had been pests damaging farms and landscapes, but the sight of diseased rabbits dying in fields horrified the public. The animal became associated not with ordinary food, but with suffering. For a country that had eaten rabbit widely during wartime, this mattered. Food is partly memory. If a food becomes linked with illness, cruelty, poverty, rationing, or hardship, people may turn away from it even after the practical reasons disappear. That is another reason rabbit struggled to recover in the UK and similar cultures. It reminded people of things they wanted to leave behind: war, rationing, disease, backyard survival, a lean meat from difficult times. Chicken, by contrast, became the meat of post-war abundance. It was cheap, modern, clean-looking, mild, and easy. It could be fried, roasted, frozen, processed, breaded, boxed, and sold everywhere. Rabbit felt old. Chicken felt new. But here is the twist. The idea that humans do not eat rabbit is not true. They absolutely do. In France, rabbit can be found in ordinary food traditions. In Italy and Spain, it appears in regional dishes. In parts of China, rabbit is widely eaten. In many places, rabbit is not shocking, cute, or morally confusing. It is simply meat. That means the problem is not the rabbit. The problem is the story a culture tells about the rabbit. In one country, a rabbit is a stew. In another, it is a pet. In another, it is a pest. In another, it is a luxury. In another, it is something grandparents ate during hard times. The animal did not change. The meaning changed, and meaning is powerful. This is why food habits can survive long after the original reasons are gone. People do not eat only what is efficient. They eat what feels normal. They eat what their parents cooked. They eat what stores sell. They eat what restaurants celebrate. They eat what childhood taught them was food. That is why Americans eat millions of chickens but hesitate at rabbit. Not because chicken is objectively less emotional. Not because chicken is biologically more worthy of the plate. Because chicken became invisible as an animal. Rabbit stayed visible. A chicken breast on a tray barely looks like a bird. A rabbit often still looks like a rabbit in the mind. Long ears, soft fur, a twitching nose, a children's story, a pet in a cage. That image is hard to season away. There's also a cooking problem. Rabbit is lean, very lean. That can make it healthy, but it also means it dries out easily. Many traditional rabbit dishes solve this by braising it slowly, cooking it with fat, or making it into stews. But American home cooking increasingly moved toward convenience. Chicken could be grilled quickly, fried quickly, cut into nuggets, added to salads, turned into sandwiches, and sold boneless and skinless in tidy packages. Rabbit needed more familiarity, more confidence, and often more careful cooking. A food that is unfamiliar and easy to overcook has a hard time winning busy households. So even when chefs tried to bring rabbit back as a sustainable, ethical, efficient meat, the effort rarely moved beyond restaurants, farmers markets, and small producers. For some diners, it was interesting once. For many, it was still too emotionally strange. That is the real lesson hidden inside the rabbit. Food systems are not built from efficiency alone. If they were, rabbit would be much more common. Instead, food systems are built from biology, industry, memory, emotion, marketing, childhood, religion, geography, and habit. A rabbit can be efficient and still lose. A chicken can be less emotionally complicated and win. A cow can require enormous resources and still remain normal because generations of culture have made beef feel ordinary. The plate is not a calculator. It is a story, and the story Americans tell about rabbits changed at exactly the wrong time for rabbit meat. During hardship, rabbits were practical. After hardship, they became lovable. When industry scaled up, chickens fit the machine better. When disease struck Britain, rabbits became linked with suffering. When cartoons and pets filled childhood, rabbits moved farther from the dinner table. By the time people began asking whether rabbit might be a sustainable protein, the emotional door had mostly closed. Maybe it will open again someday. As land, water, and climate pressures grow, some people are looking again at smaller, efficient livestock. Rabbit farming still makes sense in some settings. It can provide lean meat, use limited space, and fit small-scale agriculture. But changing a food system is not only about proving that something works, it is about changing what people feel. And that is much harder, because the question was never simply, can we eat rabbit? Of course we can. Humans have done it for centuries. The harder question is, can a culture look at a rabbit and see dinner again after spending generations teaching children to see a friend? For many Americans, the answer is still no. Not because rabbit failed as food, because rabbit succeeded as something else. So the next time you walk through a grocery store and wonder why there is chicken everywhere but no rabbit beside it, remember, the most efficient animal does not always win. The animal with the better story does. Would you try rabbit if it were sold next to chicken in every grocery store? Or does it feel too much like a pet? Leave your answer in the comments and subscribe to Andy for more strange stories about food, animals, and the hidden rules behind what humans eat.